I arrived in Hawthorn Hollow 3 weeks ago. I was excited to research local folklore. I'd always been curious about the Appalachian Mountains and their stories. I rented a small, worn-out cottage that felt cozy and filled with history. It was a quiet place, perfect for my work. On my first evening, I sat on the porch, taking in the stillness. It was so quiet that I could hear low murmurs floating through the trees. I thought it was just nature. But as the sun set, the sounds became clearer. They felt like whispers, as if they were trying to tell me something important. I wrote it off and jotted down my notes instead. The next day, I visited a little diner where the locals gathered. They shared their tales. One man spoke about people who went missing in the woods. He mentioned shadowy figures lurking in the trees. I felt a chill. It was unsettling, but I thought it was just another story crafted to scare tourists. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. That night, as I lay in bed, the whispers returned. They were louder this time, more urgent. I tried to listen closely, but the moment I focused, they slipped away. My heart raced. I sometimes thought I heard my name being called, but I wondered if my mind was playing tricks on me. Later, around midnight, I woke to a flickering light outside my window. A lantern was glowing deep in the woods. My curiosity got the better of me, and I slipped on my jacket, stepping out into the chilly air. I peered into the darkness, but the light vanished. I felt a strange mix of fascination and fear. It didn't make sense. The following day, I met an elderly woman in town. She looked at me with eyes that seemed to see right through me. She asked if I had left anything behind. I didn't know what she meant. I felt a cold sweat creep down my back. There was something unsettling in her words, like a warning or an accusation. As my stay wore on, the whispers grew louder and clearer. I felt like I was being pulled into something much deeper than folklore. Were the voices echoes of the past, or was something lost in those woods struggling to connect with me? By the end of my trip, I found myself questioning everything. Then late one night, I heard the voice again. It called my name softly, almost sweetly. I turned to look, but the woods were silent. No lantern, no one around. Just thick darkness pressing in on me. I stood there, breath caught in my throat, feeling a warning in the air. Now, I think about that time a lot. What was out there? I never found out. I left Hawthorn Hollow, but the mysteries of those woods still haunt me. I try to tell myself it was just folklore, but deep down, I wonder if something is still waiting there, in the shadows. 3 months passed since I left Hawthorn Hollow, but the experience lingered. The whispers haunted my dreams. I tried to ignore them, to brush off the odd events. I even threw myself into my research. Yet I couldn't escape the feeling that I had left something unfinished. One rainy afternoon, I was sifting through my notes. As I read, I noticed something I hadn't before. A pattern in the stories I'd collected about the woods. They all mentioned a place known as the Hollow's Edge. It was said to be the gateway to another world, a liminal space where reality blurred. My stomach nodded. I had overlooked this crucial detail before. Curiosity tugged at me. I felt compelled to return. I packed my gear, preparing for a short, impulsive trip back to Hawthorn Hollow. I needed clarity, a resolution to the mystery that still gnawed at me. I drove through winding roads, the overcast sky mirroring my unease. When I arrived, the town felt different. It was quieter, almost too still. The diner was empty except for a few locals who glanced up as I walked in. Their faces were a mix of recognition and unease. I took a seat, and after a moment, an old man approached me. It was the same man who spoke about the missing people months ago. "Thought you left for good," he said, his voice low. "You're back already? Didn't the woods warn you?" I hesitated but wanted answers. "I need to know about the Hollow's Edge," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His expression darkened. "You should stay away from that place. Not everyone who goes there comes back." Ignoring the chill he sent through me, I pushed. "But I heard stories. I need to understand." As he opened his mouth to respond, A woman entered the diner. It was the elderly woman from before. Her presence stilled the air. She locked eyes with me, and I felt an electric charge. "You shouldn't have returned," she warned, her voice both frail and powerful. "It calls to you, it knows you." My heart raced. I needed to know why she said that. But before I could ask, she shook her head and turned away, mumbling under her breath. The old man whispered again, "Leave the past where it belongs. The woods hold more than tales." I felt trapped, surrounded by people who knew things I didn't. I needed to find the hollow's edge, if only to confront whatever was calling me. As I left the diner, determination mixed with fear. That was when I heard it. A soft whisper, unmistakably familiar. It called my name again. "Come find us." I froze, scanning the trees beyond the diner. The chill of the wind felt different now. It carried a message, a challenge. The woods were waiting for me. I was drawn back, against my better judgment, into the dark embrace of the trees. What awaited me at the hollow's edge? I didn't know. But I was going to find out. I stepped into the woods and an immediate shift enveloped me. The air thickened, carrying an earthy scent mixed with something sweet and decay. I moved cautiously, the sun barely breaking through the dense canopy above. Every sound felt amplified, the rustle of leaves, the crunch of twigs beneath my boots. Yet there was a silence that crept in, almost suffocating. As I pressed deeper, the trees started to change. Their trunks twisted, branches stretching in odd angles as if reaching out to me. An unsettling feeling settled in my gut. I wasn't just in a place. I was in something alive. Something aware. Then I spotted it. A clearing up ahead, where the trees parted like curtains revealing a meadow bathed in dim light. It felt almost intentional. My heart raced. Was this the hollow's edge? I stepped into the clearing and a cold breeze blew through, sending shivers down my spine. The whispers I had heard before were now more distinct, floating through the air like ghostly echoes. "Come find us." My instincts kicked in. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn back. But that wasn't an option now. I was here. I needed answers. In the center of the meadow stood a large, gnarled tree. Its bark was dark, almost bleeding. I approached it hesitantly. As I neared, I could see strange carvings etched into the trunk, symbols I recognized from my notes. They weren't mere drawings. They felt like warnings. That's when I saw it. A figure standing just beyond the edge of the clearing. It was too shadowy to make out details, but it was watching me. I rubbed my eyes, convinced I was imagining things. But the figure remained, eerily still. A chill ran through me. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't move. "What do you want?" No response. Stepping closer, I could feel the weight of the air shift. The whispers intensified, swirling around me, wrapping me in their murmurings. Come find us." Just as I was about to turn to flee, a flash of movement caught my eye by the base of the gnarled tree. A small object lay half buried in the dirt. It glimmered. I knelt down, heart pounding in my chest. It was a locket, tarnished with age but detailed enough to see a faded image inside. My breath quickened. It was a picture of the woman from the diner, the one who had warned me. But there was another face beside hers, a man I didn't recognize. Suddenly the ground trembled beneath me, and a voice erupted from the shadows. "Leave while you can." The figure stepped forward and my heart sank. It was familiar yet shapeless. "You don't belong here." At that moment, a deafening roar shattered the atmosphere and the whispers turned into wails. Panic surged through me, igniting my survival instincts. I dropped the locket, sprinting back toward the entry of the woods, my only thought to escape. But the deeper I ran, the more the trees seemed to close in, as if the woods itself was a living entity, resisting my flight. "Come find us!" the voices cried again, echoing in my mind. I was running toward the unknown, but the hollow's edge wasn't done with me yet. I burst through the trees and stumbled onto the dirt road that led back to town. My lungs burned as I gasped for air, but relief washed over me for a moment. The comforting sight of familiar asphalt should have grounded me, but I didn't stop running. Something felt horribly wrong, a knot tightening in my gut. The voices were still there, gnawing at the edges of my mind. I kept running, glancing over my shoulder. What was chasing me? It felt more like a presence than anything, a heaviness that wanted to drag me back. Did it know my name? I needed to be sure I was safe before I allowed myself to catch my breath. Just as I reached the crest of the hill, I skidded to a halt. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what had happened. The clearing was mere footsteps away, but it felt like a million miles. I grabbed a nearby tree to steady myself, every ounce of serenity drained from my body, replacing it with dread. I thought about the locket, the woman from the diner, the man in the photograph. There was a connection here, and I was just starting to grasp it. I could hear her voice echo in my mind, warning me, urging me to leave. But why had I been drawn into those depths? My curiosity was insatiable, but this was beyond anything I had anticipated. Then I heard it again, the whisper. It was less than a whisper now, more like a rustling of leaves mixed with a breath. Come, find us. My heart raced anew as I scanned the area. There was movement in the shadows along the road. It was him, the shapeless figure from the woods. I could barely make it out, but I felt those familiar eyes piercing into me. You should have stayed away. I froze. It was almost like he was reaching for me, arms extended, yet he remained anchored to the spot. My pulse quickened. Panic surged again. I threw my body into motion, racing down the road toward town. I couldn't look back. The fear pushing me forward was unbearable. I could feel the weight of whatever was pursuing me, and I pushed harder. My feet pounded against the gravel, each step tearing me away from those woods, and yet I felt them pulling me back with every breath I took. Suddenly, a strange flash of light caught my attention down the road. I couldn't decipher what it was. Perhaps someone had parked their car a little too carelessly. But as I got closer, I saw it was not a car. It was a group of figures standing on the roadside, bathed in a glow, watching me. My heart pounded again, but this time for a different reason. They weren't just shadows. They looked like people, familiar faces. Among them, I caught a glimpse of the woman from the diner, her expression soft yet marked by an urgency. "You've found us," she mouthed, her voice silent, yet palpable in the air. They reached out, not to pull me in, but to beckon me closer. Was this salvation, or another trap? I didn't know, but as I stood at the edge of choice, I realized that the hollow's edge was a part of me now. I had to find out what connecting thread tied us all together. Just before I took another step, a thunderous growl erupted from the woods behind me. It was a sound so primal, so furious it sent me reeling. I was trapped, caught between the living and the unknown. Fear coursed through my veins as the figures in front of me nodded, urging me onward. "Come find us." And I had no choice but to step forward. As I moved closer to the figures, their forms became clearer. I could see their features now, familiar faces that felt like a dream. Yet I knew they were real. The woman from the diner stood at the forefront, her face glowing with something between hope and fear. "You need to hurry," she mouthed again, urgency lighting her eyes. But the growl from the woods pushed me into a frenzy. The shadows behind me seemed to stretch and twist, hungry for something I didn't want to give. I could feel the weight of that presence growing, seeping into the air around me. Something enormous lurked just out of sight. "Please," I shouted, desperately looking at the faces ahead. "What do I do?" I heard my voice shake, and it felt out of place against the quiet urgency of the moment. "You have to choose," one of the figures said, stepping closer. It was a man I vaguely recognized, a man holding the same locket I had found. "You can't go back. Not now." The tension around me swelled as the growl echoed again, closer this time like a warning. The looming shadows erupted into movement. I felt my pulse quicken as panic flared. "What do you mean I can't go back?" My voice was barely above a whisper, caught in the mix of fear and confusion. You've already seen too much. The woman's expression shifted to something darker, tinged with sadness. Those woods, they don't forget. In that moment I recalled the whispers, the unseen forces urging me deeper into oblivion. I wanted to fight against it, but the realization hit me like a wave. There was no retreating, I was already entangled. Then, just as I considered the alternative, there was a shift in the air. The glow surrounding the figures flickered. "They're coming," the man in the locket urged, taking a step back. "You have to join us. It's the only way to be free." Join them? The thought sent shivers down my spine. What did that even mean? The darkness loomed, spilling onto the road, and I could sense it reaching for me, clawing hungrily. I glanced back at the figures. They looked like ghostly reflections, caught between two worlds. Adrenaline surged within me, and I bolted toward them, feeling the gravitational pull of their energy. If I wanted to uncover the truth, I had to face the fear that chased me. The growl erupted into a roar, a warning shot that made the ground shake. As I crossed the threshold enveloped by their glow, time seemed to still. A distant part of me wondered if this was worse than being swallowed by the darkness. Memories flashed in my mind. The woman's locket, the photographer's eyes, the truth hidden within the hollow's edge. Each detail tumbled over one another, driving me deeper into the unknown. Then everything went dark. I stumbled, losing my footing as reality spun around me. I landed on cool grass, breathless. The figures were gone, and I was alone. Panic gripped my chest as I stood up, scanning the endless expanse around me. "Hello?" my voice echoed, fragile in the stillness. A whisper threaded through the air, crawling up my spine, familiar yet unsettling. It was there again. The breath. "Find us." I turned sharply, heart racing. I was not safe. I had traded one fear for another, and whatever was lurking in the shadows still sought me. I needed to know what I had just stepped into. Now I was truly lost, Lee. I stayed still, straining to listen, the silence threatening to swallow me whole. My heart thundered in my chest as the whispered words echoed in my mind. Find us. Who were they? My thoughts raced to the figures, their faces now a blur. Had I truly joined them? I turned, searching the dim shadows, hoping to catch a glimpse of something familiar, something to anchor me. But the darkness felt alive, pressing in from every side. I needed to move. Taking a few cautious steps forward, I felt the cool grass underfoot. It was oddly comforting, but I knew that wouldn't last. My instincts screamed at me to keep my guard up. I glanced back in the direction I thought I'd come from, but all I saw was an impenetrable black wall. The woods loomed like a giant waiting to swallow me whole. "Where are you?" I whispered, my voice soaked in doubt. "Please show me." A chill washed over me and I shivered. I needed to act. Maybe if I followed the sounds I would figure it out. I took another step, pushing through the anxiety squeezing my throat. "If you can hear me, I'm coming." That's when I saw it, an eerie light flickering in the distance. It danced and swayed like a flame in the wind, pale and beckoning. Hope surged within me. It could be a way out, or at least a sign, perhaps a clue to what lay ahead. As I moved toward it, the underbrush whispered from every side, brushing against my legs, heightening my awareness. The light pulsed rhythmically, and my pulse quickened in response. Yet a part of me remained weary. What kind of trap lay ahead? Within moments, I reached the light. It wasn't a lantern or a fire at all, but a cluster of strange-looking mushrooms, glowing with an otherworldly light. They radiated a soft, bluish hue, illuminating the area around them. My senses buzzed, and I knelt to examine them. Then I noticed something in the grass nearby, a torn piece of fabric the same shade of blue as the mushrooms. I picked it up, holding it carefully. It felt familiar, like a memory trying to resurface. But before I could think deeper, the whisper returned, sharper this time, almost urgent. "Find us, and before it's too late." My stomach twisted. "Too late for what?" I shouted into the void, frustration spilling out. The only response was silence, deeper than before. It sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over me. Suddenly I heard it, a rustling sound approaching rapidly from behind. I leaped to my feet and turned. My heart raced, and I felt as if I was being hunted. What was closing in on me? In a blind panic, I darted away from the mushrooms, racing back toward the woods. "I need to get out of here," I yelled, but it felt hollow. There was no sanctuary waiting for me, just looming darkness. Just then a flash caught my eye. I whipped around, caught in the glow of another figure. Panic clawed at my throat, and I remembered what the man with the locket had said. "You can't go back." But I didn't have a choice. Whatever was behind me was gaining fast, and I could feel its dark energy pulling me toward the unknown. That hollow whisper echoed once more. "Find us." But I had to escape. Just as the figure stepped closer, the ground beneath me shifted. I stumbled backward, hands thrashing for balance. With a sudden crack, the earth gave way, and I fell into the darkness below. I screamed, feeling the grip of fear tighten as I tumbled into the abyss. I landed hard, groaning as I pushed myself up. The world above was gone, swallowed by shadows. I squinted, trying to see in the dim light that surrounded me. The air was thick with moisture, and the earthy smell of damp soil filled my nostrils. I checked myself for injuries. My knees were scraped, but nothing felt broken. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing in the confined space. "Is anyone down here?" Silence hung, heavy and oppressive, but then came a faint rustle nearby. I turned, heart racing. A flicker of movement caught my eye, like a shadow darting between rocks. I took a step forward, bracing myself for anything. "Show yourself!" From out of the dark, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, staring intently at me. Panic surged, my instincts screaming at me to run, but curiosity held me in place. "Please don't hurt me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The eyes blinked, and the shadow moved closer, revealing a small creature. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen, with a twisted body and skin that glimmered faintly in the darkness. In its tiny hands it held a fragment of blue fabric, matching the one I had found above. "Why do you have that?" I asked, trying to ignore the chill crawling up my spine. The creature tilted its head, the glow of its eyes reflecting an understanding I hadn't expected. It dropped the fabric at my feet and stepped back, almost expectantly. "Find us," it whispered, the words barely a breath against the damp air. My heart sank. "What do you mean?" I kneeled to pick up the fabric, feeling the connection tug at my mind. The creature pointed down a narrow tunnel that veered deeper into the darkness. Somewhere, deep down, I knew this was a critical moment. I could either stay and risk whatever dark force was lurking back there, or follow this bizarre little creature. It was a choice, but it didn't feel like one at all. "Okay," I said, reluctantly nodding. "I'll follow you." The mysterious eyes flickered with what I could only interpret as relief. We moved slowly, slipping through the narrow passage. I felt the walls closing in, but I pushed those thoughts away. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to break the tension gnawing at my insides. "Find us," it repeated, and I could hear the urgency woven in its voice. As we traveled deeper, the air began to change, becoming colder, more electric. I followed the exit, unease curling in my stomach. Suddenly the creature stopped and looked at me, its expression strikingly human for a moment. Everything went still, and then I heard it. A deep, resonating sound echoing through the corridor. It felt like a heartbeat, steady and ominous. I glanced at the creature. It seemed to sense the danger too. Then from the shadows ahead, figures emerged. They were cloaked in darkness, their shapes blending with the rock around them. "You have returned," one of them said, a voice rich with authority, heavy with expectation. I froze, realizing that I was at the center of something much larger than myself. "Wait!" I managed to shout, but it felt too late. The figures advanced, and I felt an overwhelming force drawing me in. I had to do something. In a burst of adrenaline, I turned to the creature beside me. "What do I do?" I whispered, panic flooding through me. It looked up, and the words it spoke next made my skin crawl. "You must choose." Then there was darkness, swallowing me whole once more. The darkness receded slowly, like a thick fog lifting, and I found myself standing in a wide cavern, lit by bioluminescent fungi that clung to the walls. The air felt charged, buzzing with an energy I couldn't quite place, but all I could focus on was the creature standing beside me, its tiny figure trembling slightly. "Where are we?" I asked, still catching my breath. The figures who had spoken before were gone, leaving an unsettling vacuum. "Home," the creature replied, its voice a raspy echo, as it bobbed its head toward different paths branching out from us. "Choose." I took a shaky breath, scanning my surroundings. The bioluminescent lights flickered, casting eerie shadows over twisting roots and damp stones. Each path seemed to stretch into an unknown, making my insides knot with fear. "Choose?" I repeated. "Choose what?" The little creature pointed again, this time with urgency, toward a passage on the left filled with a soft, pulsing glow. "Or others suffer." Panic washed over me. I didn't want anyone to suffer, but what if that meant I was walking into a trap? "What do you mean? Who are the others?" "They wait," it whispered, eyes wide and earnest. "Time is short." I turned back to the glowing passage. Something inside me urged me forward, a sensation I couldn't ignore. But doubt mingled with fear. What if I die down there, or worse? Must choose. The creature's tone shifted, a hint of desperation creeping into its words. Finding courage, I stepped closer to the glowing corridor. The soft light beckoned, not with warmth but a promise of answers. I felt myself tilting toward it, heart pounding like a drum. As I approached, I spotted movement in the glow. Figures, similar to the cloaked ones I had seen earlier, drifted in and out of view. Their forms elongated and twisted, as if struggling against unseen forces. I felt a pull, as though they were reaching for me, calling out for aid, but their faces remained in the shadows. "Are they the others?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Are they trapped?" "Yes," the creature affirmed solemnly. "Choose." Before I could change my mind, I took a step into the glowing passage, and an electrifying sensation shot through me. The air crackled and shifted, as if reality itself warped around me. I turned back to the creature, expecting to see it follow, but it remained behind, small and resolute. "Help them," it urged. The cavern trembled and the walls closed in, forcing me forward. I pushed ahead into the shimmering light, each step heavier, the rushing sound of breath filling my ears. Then, unexpectedly, the passage opened up into a vast chamber, illuminating the trapped figures. Their eyes, hollow and desperate, locked onto mine. That's when I saw it. A massive, pulsating heart embedded in the stone floor, a dark energy radiating from it like a living entity, and the figures were connected to it, bound by tendrils that sapped their life force. I staggered back, realization dawning. This was the source of their suffering. I had to do something. But what? Before I could formulate a plan, the ground began to shake violently. Panicked, I scanned the chamber. Whatever I had unleashed was waking up. A shadow loomed from the depths, dark and foreboding, and it was heading straight for me. I felt the weight of my choice crash down. There was no going back now. The shadow inched closer, its form growing clearer with each moment. It was massive and formless, like smoke rolling off a fire, yet it held a concentrated darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. This thing was not simply an obstacle. It was a living embodiment of dread, feeding off the fear that rolled through me in waves. The air crackled, electrifying with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. I could hear the whispers of the trapped figures rising in a crescendo, calling out, begging for help, their voices overlapping in a haunting symphony that echoed in my mind. "Let them go," I shouted, my voice shaking. I had no idea what else to say. Maybe the shadow was drawn to my defiance. It stopped abruptly, and that was when I noticed the tendrils connected to the heart began to twitch violently, as if the entity was reacting to my words. The trapped figure's eyes widened. They seemed to draw strength from my anger. "You have to break the connection," one of them cried, its voice breaking as it struggled against the tendrils. "Please." I took a deep breath, drawing on whatever courage I could muster. "How?" I asked. A deep rumble vibrated through the chamber, and for a moment I feared it might collapse, but clarity came through the chaos. It was instinct. Swallowing my fear, I stepped forward. I had to reach the heart. It might be the source of their suffering, but maybe it was also the key to their freedom. As I approached it, the ground shook more violently, and the shadows roared with fury. Moving closer, I could see the heart thumping, rhythms unlike anything human. I bent down and placed my hands on the cool stone. The essence of despair swirled around me, but I pushed it back, focusing on the trapped souls behind me. I could feel their hope mingling with my resolve. Then an unexpected pulse surged through me. An electric connection formed between my heart and the stone. The pain of the trapped figures pressed against me, sharp and insistent, rising into a tangible force. I squeezed my eyes shut. I couldn't let that fear define me. Taking a steady breath, I focused all my energy on breaking the bind. With every ounce of will, I shouted, "You are free," and a bright light exploded from my hands, flooding the chamber. The tendrils snapped back, releasing the figures, their bodies surrounding me in a chaos of movement and light. Just like that, the shadow roared. It didn't like this. Everything shifted, twisting around me as darkness clawed back, pulling at my reality. I felt like I was being torn apart. But I had to hold on. "Stay with me," I yelled to the figures as they regrouped around me, pulling on whatever strength they had left. In that moment of connection, I felt a surge of energy, an awakening that seemed to cancel the darkness. It struck against the shadow, a wave of brightness that rippled through the chamber. For a second, I thought it might work. Then everything went dark. I awoke in a cold sweat, my heart racing against the stillness surrounding me. For a moment, I didn't know where I was, a brief, disorienting lapse that left me gasping for air. Blinking against the blurriness, I recognized the familiar contours of my cottage in Hawthorn Hollow, sunlight peeking through the curtains. It felt too normal, too safe to belong to the chaos I had just endured. I shot up from the bed, panic flooding my veins. Blinking away the remnants of fear, I threw open the window and looked out. The woods loomed just beyond my yard, dark and enigmatic as always, but nothing moved. No whispers called to me. Just the soft rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. I was back, but was it over? Rushing outside, I trampled through the grass toward the forest's edge. Each step echoed with memories, the faces of the trapped figures, their hollow eyes that spoke volumes, the heart pulsing with despair. I needed to know if they were free, if that darkness had been vanquished. The thought clenched my stomach, reminding me of the urgency I felt in the chamber. As I stepped between the trees, the air held an unsettling stillness. I held my breath, feeling the weight of anticipation hanging heavy. I navigated through the woods, heart racing with each step deeper into the shadows. But the light of day slipped away, soon swallowed by the looming canopy. The moment I crossed that threshold, every sound faded. A thick silence encompassed me. Was I still safe? "Find us," echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the choices I had been forced to make. I hesitated, second-guessing every decision that had brought me back. What if I returned only to invite darkness once more? Would it ever let me go? A strange compulsion pushed me forward, bridging my fear and curiosity. I reached the clearing, my eyes catching the distant outline of the gnarled tree. There it stood, unchanged, yet somehow altered, its bark more vibrant, as if infused with life. The atmosphere crackled with energy, It was intoxicating yet foreboding. Suddenly I heard voices, whispers like fragmented melodies weaving through the trees. Were they the lost souls? A chill swept through me. I had to know. As I stepped forward, I felt an unseen presence. For a moment I stood still, debating the next move. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. My heart plummeted. It was the woman from the diner, her familiar face softened by an elusive glow. She looked at me, an expression of sadness mixed with release. "You've come back." Her voice rang out softly, echoing through the clearing. "Are you free?" I gasped, desperate to glean some resolution from this reunion. "It's not that simple," she replied, her tone laced with gravity. "You've changed the flow, but we are still bound to the hollow's edge. The darkness was disrupted, but it is never truly gone." My heart sank. "What does that mean? Are you trapped forever?" She stepped close, her eyes piercing through me with an intensity I had never felt before. "You've awakened a cycle, one that will continue as long as the hollow exists. But each choice, each action creates an opportunity. Nothing is absolute, not even the shadows." Before I could respond, the air shifted again. A deep shadow snaked through the clearing, darker than night. Something stirred in my gut, a reminder that lurking in the depths was a power hungry for reclamation. The old man from the diner appeared, standing beside her, a reassuring yet solemn figure. "You did what you could," he stated gently. "But the hollow holds its secrets. It needs guardians to keep it in balance. Will you watch over it?" I glanced around, feeling the weight of the trees pressing in. "You want me to stay? To protect this place?" "Not only protect," the woman added, a hint of hope sparkling in her gaze. "You must learn, adapt. Your presence has awakened more than you know. You have a choice." I took a step back, torn. Was this my calling? The thought of staying captivated me, yet the idea of forever being tethered to the darkness terrified me. Yet, I could not forget the voices, the others calling out from their own prisons. "I don't know if I can," I stammered reluctantly. "Know this," the woman said, leaning closer. "There's always a choice. You can embrace this openness and live, or leave and forever wonder if you abandoned something greater than yourself." The tendrils of uncertainty tugged at me. Behind her, figures began to emerge, fleeting shadows of those who had undergone this journey before. Their faces transformed from specters into something akin to longing, joy, and perhaps even anguish. Visions flickered in my mind, the locket, the heartbeat, trapped souls crying out for help. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was always about connection. The choice was not an easy one, but in that moment I felt a flicker of acceptance. I had caused a ripple, ignited a chance for the others to discover freedom from their shadows. Perhaps I could too. "What if I stay?" I finally whispered. A smile broke out across the woman's lips, illuminating her features. "Then you embrace the weight of the silence and learn to listen, not just to the darkness, but to the forgotten stories waiting to resonate." An unyielding urge surged within me. The whispers around me vibrated with new energy, unchained yet uncertain. I understood then. I wouldn't know the answers today, tomorrow, or maybe ever. The shadows would remain, the woods would continue their dance, and the mystery would endure whether I chose to stay or not. "I choose to listen," I declared, feeling warmth wash over me as the shadows receded just a bit, and the whispers morphed into a chorus of hope. As I took my place at the edge of the hollow, embracing my new reality, I felt connected to all those who had come before me. I smiled softly as the forest welcomed me back, knowing that while some answers may forever remain elusive, the journey had only just begun.